Hello and welcome, beautiful souls, to I Care About You, the podcast where we navigate life's challenges with compassion, curiosity, and care. I'm Juliana J., the author of Reasons to Live, which is behind me, and today we're diving into a topic that has the power to mend hearts, heal relationships, and bring peace to both ourselves and those around us. It is the importance of saying, I am sorry. Apologizing isn't about admitting fault. That's not the only reason to apologize. It's about acknowledging someone else's feelings, showing empathy, and building a stronger, healthier connections. We will discuss the emotional, physical, and relationship benefits of giving and receiving a genuine apology and the damage caused by withholding one or even an ingenuine one, and why some people struggle to say those simple words in the first place. By the end of this episode, I hope to inspire you to embrace the power of a genuine apology and recognize the healing that it can bring. So let's start with the emotional and physical benefits of apologizing. Just saying, I'm sorry, and why it is so powerful for the person giving the apology. When we apologize sincerely, we release ourselves from guilt, shame, and stress of unresolved conflict. Studies have shown that apologizing can actually lower stress levels, reduce anxiety, and even improve heart health. Holding on to guilt and regret weighs heavy on our mind and body, leading to increased tension and even sleep disturbances. When we say, I'm sorry, we're not just giving peace to the person we hurt, we're giving peace to ourselves as well. For the person receiving the apology, it can provide emotional relief, validate their feelings, and help them move forward instead of staying stuck in pain and resentment. It allows both people to repair trust and foster deeper emotional intimacy. I've experienced this firsthand. I was in a long-term relationship, and the person really struggled with saying they were sorry. You practically had to tell them that they needed to say that they were sorry, and then that kind of reduce the genuine quality of their sorry. And often you got a very sarcastic, I'm sorry, or an eye roll or something of that nature, or they would just say they're sorry and not even know exactly why. And then they would just continue to do whatever it was they said sorry for. So that's another thing that we'll get into later, but I want to touch on it now in that apologizing, saying the words is super important to be, but when you're genuine in the apology, you're actually listening and hearing to what the other person is saying, and you're responding to that with actions, whatever it might be. So what's the damage of not saying sorry? Let's talk about what happens when you don't say you're sorry. Refusing to apologize can have lasting consequences on relationship. When conflicts are left unresolved, resentment builds. Without acknowledging your wrongdoing or wrongdoing at hand, the person who was hurt may feel dismissed, invalidated, or even manipulated. They feel unheard and unseen in their own relationships, and they even start to question, does this person really care for me or love me? Over time, this can create emotional distance, communication breakdowns, and long-term damage for trust. It can even break up a relationship, which was really, in the end, what did it for me. The lack of apologies often lead to cycles of conflict where small disagreements escalate into larger ones because there's an underlying wound that has never properly been addressed. In long-term relationships, whether romantic, familial, or friendships, this pattern can cause irreversible harm. Some relationships end not because of one major event, but because of many small instances where one or both people refuse to acknowledge and repair the harm that they caused. And this is so, so true. This is exactly what happened to me. It wasn't one big major event. It was a lot of little cuts. And not being able to say they were sorry and to really genuinely listen to what I had to say and adjust their behavior afterwards really was the nail in the coffin for me. Because over time, I didn't trust them. I used to tell them that all the times you don't say you're sorry, it just becomes this big pile over here. And now I have this huge, huge pile, like a giant haystack of all the times that I was never heard, acknowledged. You never said you were sorry. You never changed or adjusted your behavior. And now the tiniest thing goes on that pile. It looks big because it's just part of a giant unresolved pile of challenges and disagreements and times that I was not heard or respected or listened to. I think especially to there is that lack of respect. Like if you can't say you're sorry, you're inadvertently telling me you don't respect me enough to care about how I feel. And how can you have a close relationship if there is a breakdown in respect or no respect at all? So why do some people struggle to apologize? If apologizing is so beneficial, why do some people find it so difficult? Here are just a few common reasons. Pride and ego. Some people see apologizing as a loss of power or status, so they aren't going to do that, especially in a relationship where they already are coming to it feeling a lack of self-worth, a lack of value. And so, in order to get value, they don't apologize to people because they think that's keeping the power. The fear of shame. They fear that admitting fault makes them look weak or flawed. This is also another very common thing. And a lot of these, as we go over them, I want you to know some of them are pretty subconscious in the person. They don't really realize it's fear or shame that's keeping them from saying they're sorry. They're very focused on not appearing weak or flawed, of being perfect. And that could have to do with just feeling like they were supposed to live up to a standard that they never were able to live up to. They can also fear the consequences. They worry that an apology will lead to punishment or further conflict. And I'm guilty of this on the other side. Like when this particular person over time would actually acknowledge and say they were sorry, I would launch into this big dissertation about why it pissed me off so much because I was so desperate to be heard at the time and to be acknowledged that it became this big dissertation. So I'm sure there was a lot of fear around if I say I'm sorry, I'm going to have to hear this big lecture and blah, blah, blah. And I don't want to do that. I just want to say I'm sorry and then move forward. Be mindful when somebody does come to you with apology, what exactly happens in the aftermath of it on both sides. One, just saying you're sorry is not enough. What kind of action are you going to put behind it? And on the other side, how are you receiving that sorry? And what are you doing with it? And how are you creating a space where the new behavior, a new way of being can find root? And this is a super common one. People avoid conflict. They don't want to say they're sorry. They're trying to avoid conflict. They would rather ignore the issue than have a tough conversation. So even though they know they should say they're sorry, they don't bring it up because they don't want to talk about it or acknowledge it. And I touched on this one earlier, which I think applies to every reason why people struggle to apologize, is that it's a learned behavior or it's from your upbringing. Some of us were raised in environments where apologies were rare or discouraged, or people outright said they were weakness or certain people shouldn't apologize ever, or that there was a hierarchy where one group was above another group. So why say sorry to this group you're dominating? And there's a lot of societal kind of constructs and structure that's coming into play here that when you're at school or anywhere at home, wherever it might be, in a peer group, a friend group, there is this idea of learned behavior. You can't say you're sorry in the workplace or acknowledge that you messed up because you're not going to get a promotion or you might be fired. And just all of this learned information that we have that makes us feel that apologizing is going to have dire consequences or it's a learned behavior. Why should I say I'm sorry? My dad never said sorry to my mom or vice versa or whatever it is. I use the dad and mom scenario because that was pretty common for me growing up. The people who presented as the men in the relationship had the upper hand over everything. And the women were just happy to be involved in a relationship. Another one is defensiveness or justification. They believe they were justified in their actions and they don't feel an apology is necessary. Oftentimes, people will justify their actions for whatever reason, like an eye for an eye kind of thing. Well, you were once mean to me, so it's totally okay for me to do that to you, or they justify their behavior to themselves in some form, and then they don't say they're sorry because if they say they're sorry, they're acknowledging that it's not justified. And the final one, which is also very common, is stubbornness and holding grudges. Some withhold apologies in the form of control in a relationship, which we talked about earlier. Some people are just stubborn. They're just not going to say they're sorry on sheer principle. And those other things that I talked about, fear of shame, fear of consequences, emotional awareness, pride and ego, learned behaviors, avoiding conflict, justification and defensiveness, stubbornness is part of that. Like they might be using one of these other things and it's looking like stubbornness or holding grudges. And I think a lot of these points, reasons why, there's more than one usually. You could see there's a lot of overlap. So usually there's more than one at play when people won't say they're sorry. If you recognize these traits in yourself or someone you know, it's important to remember that apologizing isn't about losing. It's about strengthening the relationship and personal growth. An apology is actually very powerful in a relationship and can help you really solidify and root your relationship and find a deeper connection with each other. And it also gives you time to self-reflect and be able to grow as a person. So, how do you give a meaningful apology? A real apology isn't about just saying the words. It's about sincerity and action. Here's how to make a meaningful apology. So here's where I'm talking about you got to put action behind the apology. Acknowledge the hurt. Say what you did and recognize how it affected the other person. So, yes, I'm sorry that I did blank. I can see how that would have made you feel blank. Express genuine remorse. Avoid if or but statements. Actually, my younger daughter taught me this. Like, just say you're sorry and don't put but after it. If you put but after it, you're telling me that you're justifying it. Or if you're justifying that, and I just want an apology. So stop at I am sorry for doing whatever it is. And that is so powerful. Make amends. Ask if there's anything you can do to help repair the situation or to help the person be able to move through the hurt. Make amends. What can you do? That's very powerful. Some people will not do the sorry, but they'll put action behind it, and that is still incomplete because we're human beings. We need the words. We need the words to support it. Otherwise, I can't read your mind. How do I know what you're doing if you're making amends or changing your behavior? I don't know why you're doing that. This one person who never said they were sorry, they also valued what other people said more than what I said. Even if I said the same thing, if somebody else said it, all of a sudden it had more truth than when I said it 2 days ago. And so when they don't say they're sorry, but they change something about the way they're being, I don't know if it's because of something I said or because of something somebody else said or just because they wanted to do it. And you never get closure. You have to say the words as well as the actions. And then you have to commit to change. This is a big, big action point. You have to show through your actions that you are learning and growing, that you heard what the person said, and that you find it valuable and important how they feel. So, how they feel is valuable and important. So, you have to commit to the change. Don't just do it for 2 weeks and then go back to doing whatever you were doing before, because that will become a broken record and you aren't sincere. You aren't sincere and they'll know it, and that chips away at a relationship rather than builds it. What if you never get an apology? What do you do on the other side? Sometimes we don't get the apology we deserve. In fact, often I would say, because our culture is so devoid of saying sorry, we just think that's just such a weakness. And especially in certain genders or groups, saying sorry is really challenging for them because they've been raised to think if they say they're sorry, it's a weakness. We must find a way to move forward for our own well-being. Holding on to anger and resentment only hurts us in the long run. Practicing self-care, setting boundaries, and choosing to forgive for your own peace, not necessarily reconciliation, can help you heal. I have found that setting boundaries is huge. Most recently, I did this like, I don't know, a couple months ago. The person lied to me for the last time, and all of a sudden a light bulb went off and just really clicked that, oh my gosh, this person's been doing this to me this whole relationship. I don't even know who this person is anymore. And I set really strong boundaries that I've never set before because it's hard. I like to think of myself as a kind person, so my boundaries tend to be fuzzy, which is not necessarily a good thing. But that's how I just ran my life this whole time, and I realized it wasn't positive for me. So I made some strong boundaries with this person. Like, I'm sorry, I don't completely dislike you, but I'm not going to have conversations or do things with you or all the things that we used to do because I realized I needed to cut that off. And in doing so, I was able to let a lot of it go. I'm still working on letting other things go, but I could let some things go. Just a few final thoughts as we close. Saying I'm sorry is one of the most powerful ways we can repair and strengthen relationship. It brings emotional relief, heals wounds, and fosters deeper connections. And on the flip side, refusing to apologize creates distance, resentment, and short-term damage. It also stops closure of an event. So if something happened 10 months ago and you never got a sorry for it, you could still be carrying that around and it could still be an open wound, and the person is just rubbing salt in the wound at this point. If this episode resonated with you, please take a moment today to reflect on unresolved conflicts you have in your life. And if you have any stories where this happened, please share them with us. You can either DM me on any of the platforms I'm on, or my website, or you can leave a comment if you're viewing this somewhere or watching this somewhere where you can do so, and tell me about situations where you didn't get an I'm sorry, and are you still carrying it around, and is it still an open wound for you, and does it affect future relationships? How is that not getting a genuine apology affecting you personally as you move through life? I'd love to hear about it, and I think we can help each other heal if we all just talk openly about it, because some of my unresolved things that I'm carrying around might be very similar to yours. And if anything, we can feel like we're not alone in that. We're not alone, and we're not being silly. And maybe we can find closure just in putting it out there in the world and having other people care about it. So let me know. If this resonated with you, please share it. Please like and subscribe. It really helps me continue to make content and to work on things that are important to you. I really thank you so much for being here. It's so wonderful to have grown this podcast to the capacity that it is now. It's pretty amazing. I'm very humbled by it, and I'm so appreciative of all of you. So remember, reflect on those unresolved conflicts in life, even if you're not in the relationship anymore. It'll help you. Is there someone who deserves an apology from you? Or are you waiting for an apology that may never come? Either way, know that healing is within your reach. It's within you. And in sharing your story, you can figure out exactly what that is and how to move through it. So thank you for joining me today. If you found this episode helpful, please share it with somebody who might need to hear it. And as always, remember, I love you. I support you. You are valued. You are enough. I care about you, and you're not alone. So until next time, dear friends, take care and be kind to others and yourself.